Hey everybody, so some good news. Today, Coster did an AMA on the MMORPG subreddit, and we're going to go through it. So just before we begin, so there was a message here from him. This was a few days ago, obviously 6 days ago here, but this all happened a couple hours ago when he did the actual AMA. For those who don't know me, I designed and or directed Ultima Online, Star Wars Galaxies, and the upcoming Sandbox MMORPG Stars Reach. Next week, today, we'll be doing a Ask Me Anything / or bracket AMA about Stars Reach, playable worlds, early Ultima Online, Star Wars Galaxy, metaplays, game design, the game industry, MMORPGs, or anything else. If you want to participate, you can reply to this post and question, blah, blah, blah. I'll be back to answer them all on Thursday, which was today. So there is him, the glorious Raph, and there he is. Big smile, and look at that. Is that can we see anything on his eyes? Those could be spoilers. That could be an upcoming feature, the reflection of his lenses. But anyways, joking aside, let's go through them. So these haven't all been answered as far as I know. There was a little mix-up, so it was done in two different formats. But as far as I know, he's gone through them again and done them in this format, the standard format we're used to for AMA. So I'm happy about that. Okay, so let's just start reading and going on it. So what's your timeline for alpha, beta, and release? How much do you need to raise to finish the game? Alpha, he's hoping early summer. Beta, towards the end of the year. And launch early next year. Wow, that's pretty ambitious. That's awesome. I mean, they have the big, big chunk of it was getting the engine, like the groundwork done, the foundation, and they've done that. So that kind of makes sense. There's some flex to it, somewhat depends on how much money we raise. A few million in total. We continue to take investments, in discussion on that right now, in fact. And there is actual paperwork flying around as we speak. Else I could be more precise. We are not all counting on the Kickstarter to be all of it. It's meant to demonstrate the market interest. Okay. How viable will the non-combat playthrough of Stars Reach be? Typical games require crafting to participate in combat, varying degree. What do you plan here? The goal is to be 100% viable. So that means for you guys out there, you do not have to do combat to be a crafter or gatherer, things like that. Or obviously mobs can attack you potentially, but that said, there's a scenario where peaceful players may have stuff happening around them. An example might be you play peacefully all the time, but then a planet has an invasion or event or something. So yeah, obviously that's actually cool. I like that, an invasion or event or something. Anarchy Online, anyone? The AI expansion, I remember seeing the ships, like even when you're around the world, all of a sudden there'd be this massive ship in the sky, and like the aliens were invading and stuff nearby, and so cool. Anyways, can you describe your design process for non-combat progression paths? How are you making sure it's fun and social, etc.? Nice. I like these. Missed this one somehow. We designed it on paper and crucially make sure it interacts with the game economy. That's what ties it all, the different things together. We build a prototype, sometimes many. Crafting is over 20 until we feel it's fun. And then we'll test it with players and they tell us not, and we revise. Yeah, so... crafting is over 20, so okay, so they've built 20 different prototypes for crafting, I guess. Okay. Typically, a lot of these sandbox MMOs are about go, 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 conquer, conquer, conquer. Be the best in this and that. And I think it leads to a lot of urgency and general stressors for the average person. Are there systems in place to support someone who wants to take their time, settle down, and even take breaks without the fear, for example, your planet substantially or your home being destroyed or you being left behind? Very good question. Yeah, I think it's important that a game have room to breathe and the players have a choice of downtime. The tricky bit is that the more guidance you give, like a checklist of quests or tasks, the more encourage players to rush about and check everything off. Players often can't resist the temptation, and then the game becomes a go, go, go all the time. Building your system, so sometimes they call for patience, is therefore important. I wrote that about this back here, so he wrote an entire blog post here about it. forcing interaction. Your home will never be destroyed. Your planet might be if it takes too long or a break. We won't keep a planet around if no one visits for ages. We haven't picked a time limit there yet, but even then, we would pack your stuff. Yeah, we would pack your stuff so then when you did return, you can unfold it to a new. Okay, that makes sense. So I guess he's probably talking about maybe a construct system eventually. So that everything could just be replaced in the world, and you can just use like bars up and down. I've seen it already in the world, like when you're building with it, you can do like the red, blue, and green kind of the axis. You can move certain objects. I'm guessing they're going to do like an all-in-one construct where you can do that potentially. A lot of bad sandboxes. So this veil question, don't assume is a sandbox thing. Yeah, what sandbox do you know to avoid this problem? Yeah, there's nothing there for us. Okay. Whenever I see a sandbox, I think of an empty game with no PvE content where you have to make your own fun somehow. Will this game have PvE content that provides guided entertainment for the player, main story quests and side quests and dungeons? I'm going to say some of that's going to be no. Yes, there will be PvE content. No, there will be no main story. The game really doesn't lend itself to it because we do not have a fixed landscape. Planets will come with things like lost alien laboratories, ruined ancient civilizations, and so on. We also have the ability to spawn dynamic counters with storyline content. Lastly, we can also create dungeon planets, but bear in mind they would get used up. That's another interesting thing too. One of the things I know he wants is like a more open universe, and this would actually kind of provide it because if you go to a dungeon planet, another group's like, hey, let's check this dungeon planet. I guess you would see each other, which is kind of cool. That kind of open social aspect, right? So some of these get minimized, so I will try my best to unminimize them. Every sandbox MMO that I would say has successfully succeeded usually ends up failing by attempting to chase the numbers of big boys by emulating them at expense of their own community. What would you say the best way to avoid falling into this trap? What kind of player numbers do you think Stars Reach needs to hit for you to consider it successful in the long term? Ooh, that's a tough question. Okay. The core of the answer is be true to yourself and your vision. Commercial pressures are usually what pulls games in different directions. I think the story of the NGing Galaxies is basically a story chasing a larger market and abandoning the ones that got you there. And painful, terrible results speak for itself. Making an MMO is a lot like founding a city. It will change and evolve away from however you started, but you define certain culture around it because that's what people buy into, and then it's perilous to turn away from that. Anyways, as the numbers, as far as our numbers, our models show me, we can financially be successful with a few 100,000 players. 200,000. Wow. That's, I mean, he might make the sales, but like, what about monthly subs, stuff like that? You know what I mean? And based on the follow-up, I'd have to say it can be profitable with less, but not at our size team. I'd have to run much more detailed numbers to be able to answer that, to be honest. So he's actually being very thorough. That's a huge ambition, and I mean, this is the guy who creates the MMOs out there. But man, like I want to take New World for example. People have been talking about New World day and night before it came out for years before that. Stars Reach isn't being talked like that. Like, that's the problem. Like, I really hope it can, but ooh. Anyways, interesting. That's a tough one. That's, but he didn't answer it. He gave a really good, answer, and that was the beauty of that. So this one is, what's your plans for combat griefing? In your promotion, you put a large emphasis on community shunning and excluding griefers, but as we all know, griefers are not blah, blah, blah. They want to include these community. Okay, one of your blogs ongoing on alpha game, you told the story how an known player evaporated a town's water supply, causing the geysers to flood players' home. Given that one of your principles is to not grief, what changes and additions are you making to the game to detect, catch, and punish griefers beyond community Yeah, that's a good question. You also put emphasis on how the game will not mandate players, untrust players, through the scope of the game, the sandbox universe, blah blah blah. So they go on to that. Given this is an open MMO with thousands of players across a real world, it's impossible to guarantee everyone. Okay, so blog references guy. This guy is like hardcore on there. Uh, let's see what he says. First of all, no direct harm on players. That might seem obvious, but I have seen many people miss that. Second, no direct harm on other people's property, their homestead, etc. Third, no harm from anything indirect we can actually detect. We can detect if someone opens a lava pit near you. We cannot detect if somebody redirected a river somewhere on the other side of the planet. And though there's a butterfly cascade of events, that means that your crops on the other side of the planet gets less water. Yes, people use this for griefing, but also just for gameplay. You're multiple people participating in a dynamic system, and stuff like this will always happen by accident. Yeah, mostly accident and non-intentional griefing. Fourth, communities with proper power to grant and revoke permissions to do things. This isn't just ostracizing. I guess ostracization. I am so bad with these words, but I think that was right. We want governments to be able to do things like block entry for non-citizens, deny terraforming powers in an area or by the planet. You need to ask for a license to be able to do that to happen. In Guyamar, in fact, you would have needed that license because it would happen inside the town boundary, and people by default, private citizens wouldn't have been able to affect stuff within the town and not within their homestead. There is no way to stop untrusting players from destroying communities and non-government protected non-land claimed natural resources. This is because it isn't theirs. It's open land until claimed. A community doesn't get to say, I landed here, therefore I have exclusive mining rights over the whole world. They have to go through steps actually claiming it so they can detect ownership. Two communities who don't trust one another but both rely on the same resources have the same issues as two kids playing in a sandbox. They need to learn how to share. They might even learn how to trust. This is a gameplay, in our view. Politics and economics. Game have friction to them, and the multiplayer games and other people as part of the friction. The big difference is we can just make more sandboxes. Every community can have its own. So so if it's just the one community is griefer, a griefer community, then the other is not. Then you can have each to their own world. Blah blah blah. Okay, a lot of wording, but it was a good answer. Basically, we're not going to babysit you. Basically, you shouldn't be able to grief somebody's the player, their home, their community, and things like that. If you really want a protected, sandbox world where there is no harm, then you and a bunch of other players create like an actual claim a planet, create your own rules and regulations and go through there. So as a single player who wants to do all that, unless you're going to play 40 hours a week, you probably are not going to do that yourself, but that seems to be more on the how not to get griefed, I guess. Okay. How will you deal with griefers? Both short-term and long-term griefers. So here you go. Yeah, somehow coming into your planet, vandalizing, stealing, killing. Okay, there's a few layers. Planets that don't belong to anyone. Players will be able to standard stuff like mute, ignore. They can report, of course. They are safe from PvP unless they are in a PvP zone in some other way or opt in. Planets that do not belong to a group, you have even more options. Deny services like they can't read life on the planet or have no shop access or such penalties, get them banned from the planet so they can't even come in. Don't know if we actually do this, but in theory, we can even make them kill on sight, disallow them to fight back. As far as the long con, first is very, very hard to prevent this. And frankly, I don't think it's reasonable to expect a developer to solve this problem for you. We can't control who you trust, who you choose to trust. It's not always a clear say, okay, it's a long-term griefer. Betrayed a guild. Oh, they're talking about a guild getting robbed and stuff. Yeah, that's not. Yeah. So he's basically saying that's not their responsibility. You can't control who you trust. It's not always clear who you would want either. All the best stories from Eve come from exactly this happening, but you could set a planet to simply not allow new citizenship. You require manual approval of every new person moving in. You could set it up for a dictatorship so that there's no voting and therefore no way to overthrow the current leader, but the choice is on you to make. So there you go. So you've mentioned previously there's no quests in the game. I'm curious what the gameplay loop is to keep players engaged. Some people like the idea of being plopped in the world and let you endlessly build, but without any kind of goal. Is difficult to grasp where people should be directing their efforts. How do you intend to combat this? Here we go. So we posted up an article yesterday. There you go, which you see as a typical session loop. So you might want to take a look at it. So there you go, a tour of Stars Reach. Okay, maybe I'll even look at it for you. Okay. So yeah, what is it? Who are we? So it goes through it. What is the galaxy like? So they go through it quite a bit. That's actually cool. This is like its own video though, so maybe we'll look at that in another video. Okay, so the plan is not to have no quests. The plan is not to have no quests in the game. We'll have a mission system and we'll put quests in it. We will also allow players to create missions for one another, although this is not a game where you can just endlessly build. Instead, the hope is where you take on simple fetch quests and you're doing it for another human, not a robot. Okay, yeah. Will proximity planets and systems matter to the gameplay, or will jump drive teleportation make distance and stellar geography meaningless? Proximity will matter a lot. You'll have limited inventory. Ships also have limited inventory. If you want to teleport a lot, you will be dragging it behind you in wagons or containers. Oh, so if you want to transport a lot, like I was thinking teleporting, but transport, like moving that means you will have physically and relatively slow move goods from the wilderness to your spaceport, from orbit to a wormhole to another space zone, across the other space zone, across however many fields, nebulas, etc. there will be until you get to orbit around the destination planet. That is cool. I haven't heard anything about space, so like, you know. Then Schlalp, I don't know, is that the stuff to its delivery location, and the monsters are probably going to try to steal the whole way. We also allow you to initiate a clone of your body by your friends if you want to play with them, and then you're on the other side of the galaxy, but only stuff that comes with you is your tool belt and clothes. You'll rewind back afterwards and you can't bring anything back with you. It's meant solely so a way to let people... That is so freaking cool. Okay, so one of the things... I saw this in Dual Universe, which is a great idea too, but it's a good way, like, hey, I want to like check out this player's build or whatever. Oh, we live like 100 miles away. Well, I want to make a video on it. Do I drop everything I do? Do I buy a second account? Like, you know what I mean? It gets all kind of messy. But being able to like, hey, summon me over there. Let's go do something together. Like, this is kind of like the cool stuff, right? So, okay, so that was a really good answer. I like that. Hi, Raph. Raph, I was impressed with your research of the trust spectrum times ago. That was that work explained to me the most successful and unsuccessful phenomenon in MMO genre. Can you please describe your project Stars Reach from the perspective of the concept of the trust levels? Because so far I see a major problem. Oh, everything in your MMO currently demonstrates is gameplay that operates as a very high level of trust. You must unconditionally trust anyone who can affect your planet. Trading is only an example of gameplay a low level of trust, but there can be essentially avoid direct contact with other players. Where in Stars Reach do you see possibly progression along this trust spectrum for development of relations between people? This is what happens when you're the guy who writes like basically the books on MMOs. Glad you like that. Stars Reach is actually set up very much as an environment where you do not require high trust. That's the case right now, even in the tests. I think this is the core oh gosh, I'm not saying people have that they fear. You can own a planet and people can modify that planet. There will be thousands of planets. Think of the one you and your friends control as a very elaborate guild house. Your space, your rules. It's a bit silly to say it is high trust to allow another player in, say, uh, Kazmakula or something in Final Fantasy 14 or Kalimdor in WoW to kill monsters in front of you. It's not your monster. These zones don't belong to anyone. The same is true if someone mines some gold there. It's not your gold. Most planets won't belong to anyone. In other words, exactly like what you would be used to in every other MMO. We need to add on top of the ability. Okay, so what we need to add on top is ability for group claims, a zone to turn into a fancy guild house. So really, when we talk about mechanics for low trust and high trust, what we should be talking about isn't planet ownership. It's the moment-to-moment mechanisms. Example things that the game that are very much designed to let play a low trust and gradually move up the trust ladder. This is some crazy stuff. Lots of public goods. Lots of public goods in quotation style stuff. A couple examples: passive area, plus from just playing near each other. You don't even need to group to get group style benefits. The leader earns XP. People succeed around them, but you do not need to speak or interact in any way. And there's no leeching. There is just everyone's benefit. That makes sense. So there's a skill. I know they want leadership skills. So like. Ronnie the other day was talking about, you could actually like order out a formation. So let's just say you guys are doing PvP stuff. I'm going to do PvP because it's easier. You can do it through PvE. But let's just say, he's in a group with people doing something PvP wise. And he gives a formation and you can send commands and, say, go into this formation and do this type of attack and stuff like that. That's sort of how that works. But I guess you could take this more. You don't actually have to be in a group, quote unquote. You can just, be a leader that provides a benefit. For example, maybe if you have that leader skill, that item in your bar, or maybe you're using that bar actively, maybe everyone around you gets like a 10% boost to their experience. So whatever tasks they're doing at the time, they all get a 10% buff. That is kind of like cool. So you're working on your leadership, but all these random strangers around you might be only like 100 blocks out. Who knows, right? It probably isn't super far, but all these other people also get a benefit from it. So it's kind of like a win-win. It's freaking cool, to be fair. This is the kind of thinking that this guy, to me personally, I think is a genius. And don't let him hear me say that, because then he'll think I'm going to start a cult or something. But if you're going to do a cult, do it after a guy who makes video games. Don't do it for a president. I'm sorry, but anyways, so let's see. Yeah, okay, passive. When you make a camp, anyone who uses it earns XP if they do actually. Yeah, that's another thing. I only learned that the other day. So when you make a camp and somebody goes and walks in your camp and stuff like that, might use stuff in there, you actually get some experience from that. So that's kind of cool. That's the ranger skill or whatever they call it. But you lose nothing if they do. There's no trust required at all. Effectively, you're gifting the world with a small benefit and getting back some progression in return. And others use your camp and are effectively tipping you in EXP. There's zero trust or commitments required. But that sort of gifting interaction actually exactly is what gradually turns into closer ties. You have to move up the trust ladder. You get meditated stuff like secure trade. Mission systems are effectively making a secure trade asynchronized and way more flexible. Most of the low trust systems have higher levels that start requiring trust, so you can guarantee from a passive leadership area buff actually join a group formally. Unlocking more capabilities for everyone. Sorry, yeah. So there you go. That was probably like when I said, you can tell them to go in formations and things like that. So I guess I would say a whole game is designed to start you playing at a low trust and gradually let you start trusting others until you're at the point where you want to be in a guild or whatever. This dude answers them too well. Like, it's a lot of reading. I need, like, a drink here. Like, low on liquids here. Give me a second. Okay. Oh no, this seems like another one that's going to be. Oh, this is simple. Raf, in 2020, a text was published featuring your thoughts on a sustainable business model for gaming, in particular, and presented the following argument in terms of what works. The number one answer in game that deserves to be subscribed to. The ultimate intent for subscription to offer a service that holds players for terms of years, and making the game that will hold somebody for years is very hard and completely different proportion. I can't say it, from making consumable content games. In your opinion, does Star Reach deserve to charge a monthly subscription fee? Today, no. By when we launch, absolutely. We are designing it so it lasts for decades. I'll leave aside a business realities. That's pure sub-business model. It's very challenging. Only a few titles can attempt it in today's market. Let's see this one. I played UO from beta until Siege server came out. The changes to PvP made me and my guild quit the game. Do you have any regrets about those changes? Would you have done anything different? Yeah, I've written a lot about that. Short form, I wouldn't have done Trammel. I think doing Trammel costs us a lot of magic of the game. Also doubled the user base, which is very hard to argue with. The issue with UO was griefing, not PvP per se. PvP was a tool. It was easy for griefers to win. But where UO gray shards... but there were UO gray shards that did things like go red. You can't use any city at all. No banks, no services, etc. Boom. Player policing started to work because they had hit upon something with enough friction that it was a deterrent, and incident of PKing fell dramatically. A couple of articles you might want to read. As for regarding Star Reach specifically, there you go. I think the bottom line I have arrived at over the years is this: I want players to have a fun experience, loads of varied gameplay and freedoms. What I want. I hate taking away gameplay and freedoms for the name of safety, but you often have to. I feel like jumping to remove all gameplay freedoms and player interactions and leaving behind treadmills of content consumption in instances is two things. One, a betrayal of what an MMO can be, and two, giving up on solving very real problems, saying let the admins deal with it, and eventually the admins decide it's too expensive, then they just don't, and then you get Twitter/X. We are here on Reddit. We think each subreddit has a player policing community. In fact, it's like an owned planet, in Star's Reach. Yeah, you may have quarrels with the mods, but at least not the Reddit the corp. But at least it's not Reddit the corp who is down your business. And it's not the cesspool it would be if there was no mods, only Reddit. The corp was doing any modding. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, UO was trying to solve these issues very early. There was exactly 3 systems on the internet with an upvote, downvote reputation system back then. Ultima Online, Slashdot, and eBay. We screwed it up and didn't manage to get it right. And he gave up trying to favor a central moderation, but central moderation doesn't scale. Eventually, I was wrong about how soon I would break. It worked for EQ. Eventually, broke when WoW got big enough. Yeah, that's really cool. Hey, stop answering these big questions. Okay, let's see. Has your team considered a system that allows players to create their own content, such as dungeons and quests, and similar to the Forge in Neverwinter Online? Do you ever consider it? The engine is built to do it, but at launch we're starting small with just a mission system. Yeah. Okay. Is there any plans for PvP? Start out PvE only. Will allow player-controlled planets to set themselves to PvP zones if they choose. That's it at launch right now. Eventually, we'll allow guilds that are of a army type to do warfare and get ranked against one another. Eventually, we'll allow players to join one of 3 PvP factions that are opposed, we plan to have the same sort of overt system with temporary flags that Star Wars Galaxy had. We also plan to have faction points and perks in a similar way. I'd like to layer on some territory control there too. Interesting. Didn't know that was that, that much in for PvP. I thought it was just going to be simply, turn it on or off on a planet, screw off. Are there any survival mechanics in the game that are required? You can eat. It buffs sometimes heals. You manage stomach fullness. It doesn't hurt you to have an empty stomach. That's awesome. So basically, it's a buff, but you don't have to. So like games like EverQuest 2, I know. I don't know about older EverQuest. And other ones here. I was looking at one, Project Gorgon. Sorry, I'm saying it wrong. Once again, I think eating is just a buff again, but that's the idea, right? So, yeah, there are environment hazards that could become more survivalish. Freezing cold planets, for example. We have planned skills for wilderness survival, affecting local temperatures, etc. What kind of activities do you have in mind or in the works for people who want to avoid PvP but really want to engage more meaningful PvE content with others? The word meaningful carries a lot of weight here. I suppose that depends on what you consider meaningful. A lot of people see slaying the same dragon 100,000 as 100,000 other players using the same strategy from the same wiki as being really meaningful. And it can be to you, but I'd argue what is the meaningful there that you and your friends succeed at a hard task, not that it's specific dragon. Specifically, that dragon is mostly useful because it's a yardstick. You can measure kind of constantly. We will have those dragons to slay. I guess is what I'm saying is saying, like, if you and your friends are one who fought your way to the center of the spider dragon infestation to find a massive lair of a queen at the center, the one that had swallowed most of the planet up with spider dragon spawners, and even caused spider lizards to start walking into your town and biting people, and then you start fighting that queen, and from the center of the lair there unfold a marker left behind of the old ones growing huge and powerful, and you have to deal with hacking it and fighting off in waves of creatures defending itself within the rest of and the rest of the trappings of the raid encounter, and you succeed. And as a result, all the layers and markers on the planet shrink back down or vanish because you cut off the source of it all. And now the planet has far less quantity of spider dragons, and the whole planet hears you took out a max level maker and saved the world. Isn't that meaningful? Heck, it's possible you might take out all the makers. Yeah, it says makers. I keep thinking markers, but yeah, makers. And now you drove the spider dragon extinct altogether on the planet. Isn't that meaningful? I like the idea. Just shorter words. But no, that's awesome. Okay, why the decision to have travel in space be nothing more than a physical body floating through it? Oh, I think that's more than that, but yeah. In regards to Star Reach, it's too really big to turn off. It seems ridiculous, like fly mode in any survival game. That's just a pre-alpha thing until we have spaceships. You will always be able to get out of your ship and fly around, though. All the ground gameplay is meant to work in space, so you can build space stations, claim an asteroid, and build your own home there. What MMO have you had most fun playing and playing that wasn't one of your one you worked on? Bear in mind, I've been playing them for a long time, and I'm just very jaded about games in general. When you make them as your career, it's very hard not to play pretty much anything and say this is just a tiny variation of these other 100 games. I've played and analyzed, and I play the average game for less than 20-30 minutes and move on. I was massively hooked on Worlds of Carnage back in the mud days. I maxed out, ran a guild, all that. I was one of the richest people in there. I thrive clothing business. I barely worked on EQ2, but it did play it. I did play it for a while. I found EQ and WoW to be very much like IQ mods I'd been playing for years, so neither of them hooked me. Frankly, I got bored by the level treadmill games very easily. The MMO that catch my attention are the ones that are off the beaten path. 1 hour, one less. 1 hour, one life is one of the most interesting MMOs ever made. In my opinion, you can't say I have bragging rights in it. Like everyone, I die after 1 hour, usually much less. Realm of the Mad God was great fun, I thought. I wish I'd gotten to play Arcade during the golden window. That would have been up my alley, but I missed out. What is the end game plan for Stars Reach beyond planet customization? First, I don't think planet customization does the justice. It's more like you and your group are working to solve a problem to keep your planet alive and still trying to progress. You can do that without destroying it. The planet's health bar shows in red, and you can't recycle any more sand into sandstone because we've locked it all up in a building with all the politics and arguments and trade-offs implies. Are you ready to shift to importing only economy if you pave over the whole thing to maximize revenue? What about dealing with the infestations or the servitors getting mad? That's like the aliens that put us on these planets. I personally hate the term endgame. We always used to say elder game back in the day. Endgame to me carries rushing to the end past the meat game experience and just doing raids over and over. Elder game me means the games you play that aren't dependent on content. We talk about that in our last blog. Obviously, it's too early to give concrete plans, but there are some ideas what we could possibly expect for post-release content expansions, question mark. Well, already mentioned PvP. I suspect cap ships or being able to walk around inside a ship post-launch. More species always on the table, sort of a world type. Right now, orbital zones and wormhole interior zones are post-launch. There's other things. Of course, we're starting out with humanoid-only galaxy because old ones exterminated everything local from their genetic experiments. But there are more in the universe than just this galaxy. There's more to the universe than just this galaxy, and introducing alien civilizations is possibly. He's got some crazy plans. Okay, the Kickstarter page mentions player-run economies and governments. I am assuming there are ways to combat griefing. Oh god, guild worlds, but their plans for player-run law enforcement, such as what could be found in the arcade. I think referenced some of the old replies already, but we haven't settled whether it will go as far as a jury system, though. Are there systems in place to ensure a player who join year after launch aren't permanently behind everyone else? Question mark. It's just a fundamental different vibe than that. Behind in what way? You have a brand new settlement planet, all the potential resources ahead of you. You have a planet to live on. But have mined out and killed everything. Are you actually better off? Everything in our game is designed so that big achievements don't stay. You overextend or collapse, etc. It's not the raw accumulation game. All the items break, planets get consumed. Even our crafting system doesn't let you just accumulate recipes like every other game. You have a recipe in a book that is like a deck of cards with fixed inventory. You are going to make choices about that, what you can make. It's meant so that advanced crafters can't control the market on low crafted goods. You follow that sort of design principle everywhere in the game. Okay, in Star Wars Galaxy, we had social element like the Katina, whatever. We had to sit there, wait to heal up via entertainers while we were there. We met new friends, experienced new things, and like rebel raids. What social elements do you have planned for Stars Reach? We also have the same thing. In fact, we already have a basic form of entertainment in the pre-alpha right now. It's a common sight to see people dancing in camps, plan on to add more we plan to add a few more wrinkles. I'd like to collect dance moves. For example, we have plans to allow async ways of storing and creating entertainment content. Basically, quite a lot of the ideas from Star Wars Galaxies are translating over intact. What game released in the last decade have influenced Star's Reach the most? Breath of the Wild, Noita, Heaven's Vault, the language system, Animal Crossing, Returnal, Stardew Valley, and a ton of platformers. We also pull the from a lot of ancient references like Mule, ArchCon, and Smash TV, and Starflight, and Star Control, and Realm of Impossibilities and stuff. Plenty from stuff like the middle, ranging from League of Legends to Minecraft, of course. Okay, I'm at my 90-minute mark, so I'll have to stop for now, but I will try to come back and answer more later today. Do you please? Yeah, well, I guess that was just that comment. Doesn't mean all of them. I think this is when he was doing it from the other list, so that's why. Could you please explain more vision of spaceships in the game? Are they going to actually let you travel through space and explore space? Are they going to let you teleport but be glorified? Will there be light stats or quality love on them as well? That doesn't make sense. Oh, is this me writing this? I don't actually have a working Reddit account like at the end. What are other things for those of us who have never played Star Wars Galaxies? It's a crafting system I've played a lot. Well, okay, so so he's asking about the how ships work, how crafting system works. Consider alpha rather beta. Are you hoping? Okay, so no wipe. Yeah. You didn't answer that one, did you? Yes, arcade, spaceflight, cargo, and dogfighting. Single seater to start. Stats for sure. Awesome. Crafting almost exactly the same. Resource will have varying stats by planet. Used up rather than moving. Less range on stats. Star Wars Galaxy had this too. Too many digits of precision, a lot of detail that didn't actually matter. Experimentation with a bit of push in the luck system. Experimented items only sold at shops. Bulk production with blueprints. Those can be commodities market. Okay. I noticed he did not ask about the early access. I mean, the guy did ask like 3 questions. Hey, Raf. I was very excited about Star Reach. I'm just curious on what games you like to play when you have free time. I usually go towards things that are not games for my free time, honestly. Usually creative things, writing and recording music. Writing sometimes, art, board game design theory. I play a vast majority of games in a big lump at the end of the year during awards season. Then I usually binge 70 to 100 of them over the course of a couple months. Holy crap. Can I have access to his game library? Okay, so this guy has a bunch of questions, but I'll have to answer a bunch of these, but I suspect you might need to post them in separate threads. So we've already read that. Probably. What are your plans to have to ensure the world does not feel too large? Hundreds of planets sounds cool when the games is millions of players, but could you prove very difficult to handle first starting out? The player count is small. The big point of how our server architect works is that we can add or remove planets based on player population, so we can keep the game world at a right size for the number of player playing. How crucial is PvP to the game? How possible is it to avoid PvP? Okay, so there he is. Not in, completely opt-in. So opt-out. Yes, completely opt-in. We know that PvP is not required. Okay, what's this one? I don't expect to answer my question to be picked from blah, blah, blah. Do you have any plans to ever turn your creation into something then more than just yet another artificial skill? Chopping down trees, blah, blah, blah. AI monsters, scripts, livestock on a farm, high repetitive activity simulator. Those are the things we love. For example, a fully functioning person with plenty of social responsibilities and very limited time for entertainment might just come on, log in, buy, or lease for a much cheaper price. Yeah. Oh gosh, that gets a little complicated. Some people ask some crazy questions. There's nothing wrong, but yeah, like players while using natural body movement to fully animate their avatar instead of relying on limited static avatar. What do you want? This person plays Second Life, don't they? And they want to like do like the moves. It's just a joke. I think it's not entirely possible to make the artificial skill progression game in VR. That's probably what the first big VR MMO it will be. VR is just rendering tool. It's not a game. In fact, I don't think any of the features you listed would stop that game from still being a skill progression game. That said, exact experience you describe is available today in VR chat, which is pretty popular. It also sounds basically like Second Life but VR. Holy shit! I called it. This dude is like, it sounds like you want to do some naughty stuff in a VR game. Yeah, he called it. Our backend actually does support doing UGC, but that's that's for the far future. Yeah. What's the biggest system you see being the reason people play your game initially? What in-game activities do you think people will continue to play the most after the honeymoon period? There's no question that most people right now draws running around the world that actually acts like a world instead of a cardboard set. That way we see drawing and giggles of delight from our testers when they play. But over the long haul, we'll see people playing because they're working together, building cities. We have a lot of players with over 150 hours logged, and that's what they tend to be doing. Have you ever been? Have there ever been any content systems you would have liked to put in a game but were limited by MMO part, either due to limitations of networking technology or player behavior, such as equality issues UO faced? So many. I wanted to do morph targets like we do on avatars, but for all crafting, I wanted what we have for SR and EQ2 or free realms, and we shouldn't do it. I wanted real physics on Star Wars Galaxies. I could go on and on. Okay, so he's just naming a few things. What do you view as sand in sandboxes? What game loops do you envision for Star Reach? Okay, so I wrote about sandboxes versus theme parks here. To me, the real distinction is whether the world is simulate. He doesn't say simulation; it's simulationist or a bunch of static cardboard sets. Exploration and mapping combat, collecting generic sample arrays, etc., harvesting, crafting, selling, farming, breeding, merchanting, transporting, smuggling, leading, governing, and entertaining. Oh my goodness, what is this? It's anything else. They created so amazing. I guess the biggest question is different griefing. Oh, this is the same griefing thing again. For example, there's some. Well, does mining work when it comes to planets? Somebody makes a. Oh my goodness. Okay, so they're basically talking about griefing. How do you stop griefing? How do you deal with Swiss cheese? I guess because I guess a bunch of people are mining. They're screwed. And yeah, he talks about only tough questions because this has been one of the hardest parts of survival games. More players don't care about other players. How does mining work? Continue with mining. Are there plans to mining worlds or worlds that are meant more for chaos? Either way, I'm looking forward to this game. I described above, but the threshold below, which we cannot put in your safe cocoon. If you have a neighbor with an eyesore, you appeal to the town or talk about it with your neighbor. Can't really do much about that. It's more like there is a special guild type that guild you join when you are a citizen of a given planet. They could be hundreds on planets or a couple hundred citizens. The citizens choose a leader, and the leader sets the rules, which might include cannot be replaced. The leader and their delegates can do things like tell that one player with the ugly building, yuck, not this. I never thought of that. Like a group of people, like let's just say they're like a collective, thousands of players in a group where they have certain regulations and rules, and they hold hundreds of planets. Dun, 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 dun. Didn't think of that. Like, that was the thing in Second Life. Like, you could rent or buy land, and there was actually rules and regulations of what you can do on that sim. So, yeah, it's more like a special guild type. Yeah, okay, we read that. We actually ran into this already in the tests. We put a fix in basically about overall mesh complexity. I'm not that worried about it in terms of client performance. It's much more of a UX, and that's no problem. We are actively working on that angle, and it's a subject of much discussion on Discord. Okay, we can make planets meant for settlements versus ones meant for dungeons or just extracting, if that's what you mean. By default, you can do all the things, but we have talked about having template types better suited for one versus the other. Woo! It's Star Reach for newbies. I think the most successful big MMO made in years. I hope it attracts people who have never played MMO at all. Will any player tests suit EU zones? I can't join due to them all being in late Pacific times. We run tests suitable to EU regularly, rotate times around every week. Hi, Raph. My question, not Ralph, it's Raph. The question would be, when you were working on Star Wars Galaxies, did you envision the MMORPG genre to look like? What did you envision the MMORPG genre to look like in 20 years from then, and how much is that vision lined up? I expected to have Minecraft that looks like Star Reach. Okay. I've expected to have a Minecraft that looks like Star Reach, but the ability that everyone to run their own world with building capabilities with Roblox for all to be on one big network like the internet, and we could have that by now. Years ago, honestly, if we were more just me pushing towards it, yeah. There was just more. I guess he's talking about he wanted to see like Minecraft, but like MMO style of it. Does Star Reach plan to support community modding and no? Wait, hope so. Wait, what? Support community modding and content at some point down the road? If so, you're getting the game in a way accessible, customized experience. I guess they mean like making dungeons and stuff. I hope so. The architect is set up in a way so that you can have own planet, mark itself as modded. That way you can't carry items out and balance in the main game's unaffected, but you can go there and see cool stuff. Oh, but this is far. Oh, okay. So like maybe creative worlds and stuff like that. Interesting. Okay. I didn't realize that. Thank you for hosting AMA. I've been playing MMO since UO, and my favorite class ever was an entertainer in Star Wars Galaxy. My guild was focused on performing my role. Will Star Reach us social professions? Ability to create it on this level. I hope so. So yes, they do, and yes. So he should have said they do, and I hope so. Like on that level. You've been doing games for a while, and what ways do you think today's gaming scene is similar or different than the scene? And we just did this. Everyone today is cynical and has lost hope, and people don't see that most devs are in it because they love games and all too much about money, and now I'm depressed. That is true. I mean, especially for developers. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of people are not willing to support developers, so developers have to go to big, huge, fun, hedges or whatever they call it, and then they have to go based on their rules. Oh, sorry, we're not delaying it another year. We're not doing this. We're not doing that. Then the developers release it. We've done our best. We put our heart and soul into what we can. The players say, oh, boo, we don't like your game, or you're not fixing this fast enough, blah, blah, blah. Those developers get kind of depressed and tired, and then people wonder why the MMO industry is a dying breed. Here, can players potentially expect expansions, DLCs in the future that include new professions for Stars Reach? For people, one highlighted good expansion content, but has there been new professions? Star Wars Galaxy Shipwright, Final Fantasy 14 Blue Mage, things like that. That is easy to do given our Tekken system. There you go. Okay, personally love the Jedi. I personally love Jedi being sort of hidden unlocked class in Star Wars Galaxy. I never became one myself, even though I wanted to. How do you guys think that turned out? It killed the game. I don't know. Even literally has a blog post on it. I mean, I think we all agree it did. Will there be a procedural materials like Star Wars Galaxy? I don't see how crafting can be viable without it. Yes. How do you feel about fishing and implementing? What kind of fishing gathering system would you most likely implement? For instance, would it be specific gathering? No. Okay. Fishing in an MMO is largely my fault. I wrote that for UO personally. I still like the system, though more mini games and way more data. So it sounds like he wants it, but he wants more complex, more complexity to it. Following up from a post a couple of weeks back, blah blah blah. What led to the decision to decline the job working on Meridian 59 and 3DO? I'd already been offered the UO job. Favorite sandwich, Cambano or Italian sub? Apparently, I think we're good. That was amazing. Yeah, this is the one he first did, and if we go through what we just did, it was basically all on here. So, yeah, you can even see this is it. Thanks all. So there you go. So I'm happy with that. That was a good AMA. A lot of reading. I'm not really good at public speaking, so forgive me. That's, just me. Next week, the Kickstarter should launch. I'm thinking it's probably Monday or Tuesday. And I really hope you consider supporting this game because I'm really excited for it, and you better be excited. No, I'm joking, but I really have faith in this community. The developers are very open; they're always talking to us. Honestly, it's kind of like Starbase. I hate to say it. Starbase was very open and talkative. Starbase isn't dead. The developers continue planning to work on that. The difference between Starbase and this game is Starbase actually has a revenue platform of other games they can work on, and they can continue going back to Starbase. To be fair, this one doesn't. They have investors, I believe. They have the Kickstarter, but I assume this is something, a passion project that they want to get right and do it properly. So I really hope they do get people who will check out the game and would really be part of it, obviously. So anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this, and please check out Stars Reach, and have a wonderful day. Bye.